I announced my retirement 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago. I have 1 year left because of the merger with my label pushed everything back 1 year. So I have one album left to deliver. I'm proud to say that I am country music. They've made a home for me there. I'm not the country music, but I belong to it, and as long as they'll let me be there, it's where I'll be.
Garth Brooks, born on February 7, 1962, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, did not grow up in an ordinary household. His mother, Colleen Carroll, once dreamed of stardom and even signed with Capitol Records in the 1950s, but her career faded before Garth was born. His father, Troy Brooks Jr., worked as a draftsman, earning just enough to raise 6 children, but music was never far from their home. Every Friday night, the Brooks family was expected to perform in the living room. It wasn't optional. If you didn't sing, dance, or play an instrument, you faced consequences. Colleen treated those nights like professional auditions, critiquing her children as though they were on stage. This unusual family tradition left a deep mark on Garth. He didn't just want to perform well, he felt he had to be perfect. When Garth was 6 years old, he stumbled across his mother's old rejection letters and failed music contracts. Instead of hiding her disappointments, Colleen used them as lessons, pushing Garth to learn guitar, memorize classic country songs, and even practice with a stopwatch so his timing would be flawless. By the age of 8, he was performing songs without a single mistake, impressing local musicians who saw unusual talent in him. This constant pressure taught him discipline, but it also filled him with a fear of failure. Garth wasn't just playing for fun. He was playing to win the crowd, a habit that would shape the rest of his career. Garth Brooks, born on February 7, 1962, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, grew up in a house where music and discipline were deeply connected. His mother, Colleen Carroll, had once been a Capitol Records singer during the 1950s. She even performed on the national TV show Ozark Jubilee. But her career ended in disappointment. By the time Garth was born, her dreams had faded, but she still carried the weight of her unfulfilled ambitions. His father, Troy Brooks Jr., worked as a draftsman for an oil company, earning very little while raising 6 children. Despite their financial struggles, Colleen insisted that music would remain central in their lives. Every Friday night, the family was required to perform in the living room. It was never optional. Each child had to sing, play, or entertain in some way, and Colleen judged them like she was still on stage. For young Garth, this was both terrifying and motivating. He realized early on that performing wasn't just for fun, it was about perfection. When he was 6, he discovered a shoebox filled with his mother's rejection letters and old record contracts. Instead of hiding them, Colleen showed him her failures and used them to push him harder. She taught him guitar, forced him to memorize George Jones songs, and timed his performances with a stopwatch. By the age of 8, Garth could sing 3-minute songs without a single mistake. Local musicians were surprised at how disciplined he was for such a young boy. This intense environment created in him not just a love for music, but also a constant pressure to succeed. He grew up with the belief that anything less than perfection was failure, and that mindset shaped both his music career and personal struggles later in life. During his teenage years in Yukon, Oklahoma, Garth lived 2 separate lives. By day, he was an outstanding athlete. He excelled in track and field, throwing the javelin far enough to earn a scholarship to Oklahoma State University. That scholarship was worth around $8,000 a year, a life-changing amount for his family. But at night, he secretly chased his real dream, music. He played in local bars and clubs with his band, Santa Fe, often earning just $25 per show. It wasn't much, but for Garth, it meant independence and the chance to build his skills on stage. Interestingly, his 2 worlds never crossed. His coaches never knew he was playing late-night gigs, and his bandmates had no idea he was a serious athlete. This double life pushed him to extremes, staying out until 2 in the morning performing, then waking up only hours later to train. Yet this mix of discipline and passion created a powerful stage presence. The same explosive energy he used to throw a javelin became the energy he brought to his live performances. Even as a student at Oklahoma State, where he majored in advertising, his focus was more on music than on academics. He often played at local bars like Willie's Saloon, where the floors were sticky, the crowds rowdy, and the fights unpredictable. Instead of being discouraged, he studied the audiences. He kept notebooks where he rated crowds, noting which songs made people emotional, which caused fights, and which emptied the room. Long before the word data became popular, Garth was collecting it to improve his performances. By the mid-1980s, he knew he wanted to chase music full-time. In 1985, he drove to Nashville with only $1,500, hoping to land a record deal. But after just one day and a few rejections, he drove back home defeated. Feeling uncertain, he quickly married his college girlfriend, Sandy Moll, in 1986. It was a sudden decision partly driven by fear of facing Nashville alone, though his first Nashville attempt failed. Garth didn't give up. 2 years later, with Sandy by his side, he returned to the city. This time, things were different. He got signed to a publishing company and slowly began making connections. The real turning point came at the Bluebird Cafe, a small venue known for showcasing songwriters. One night Garth was scheduled to perform ninth, but another singer cancelled, moving him up earlier in the lineup. A Capitol Records executive, Lynn Schultz, happened to be in the audience that night. He hadn't come to see Garth, but when he heard him sing If Tomorrow Never Comes, he was blown away. That chance moment changed everything. Garth was signed by Capitol Records, and in 1989 he released his debut album. At first, the album sold slowly, but soon, songs like Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old, If Tomorrow Never Comes, and The Dance climbed the charts. The record eventually sold more than 10 million copies, turning Garth into a household name. His live shows made him stand out even more. Unlike traditional country singers who mostly stood still on stage, Garth brought rock-style energy. He jumped into crowds, smashed guitars, and treated country concerts like rock shows. This shocked older fans, but attracted millions of younger ones. His second album, No Fences, 1990, sold 18 million copies and produced massive hits like Friends in Low Places and The Thunder Rolls. By the early 1990s, he was not only dominating country charts but also breaking into pop music territory. In 1991, his album Roping the Wind made history by debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart, something no country artist had ever done. Garth Brooks was no longer just a country singer. He was the biggest music star in America. As Garth's fame exploded, so did controversy. His music video for The Thunder Rolls included a scene of domestic violence, and both TNN and CMT banned it. But the ban only made people more curious, and the video later won major awards. He also faced backlash for releasing songs with social messages like We Shall Be Free, which supported equality and gay rights. Many country stations refused to play it, but Garth didn't back down. Instead, he doubled down on his performances. His world tours in the early 1990s were groundbreaking, using pyrotechnics, harnesses, and massive arenas more typical of rock stars. He sold out stadiums around the world, including shows in London where country music wasn't even popular at the time. Media nicknamed him Garth Vader because of how he conquered markets outside the United States. His success brought money and power, and he wasn't afraid to use it. In 1997, he delayed the release of his album Sevens until Capitol Records replaced its president, proving that no label executive could control him. His 1997 Central Park concert drew over 1 million people, setting a record and showing just how massive his influence had become. At this point, Garth Brooks was the best-selling solo artist in American history, with millions of albums sold and countless awards. But while his professional life was soaring, his personal life was quietly collapsing. Behind the spotlight, Garth's marriage to Sandy was crumbling. His relentless touring schedule kept him away from home for more than 200 days a year. He missed birthdays, school plays, and even the first words and steps of his daughters, Taylor, August, and Ali. Sandy was left to raise the children almost entirely on her own, often relying on nannies while Garth performed across the globe. Rumors about his growing closeness with fellow country singer Trisha Yearwood began to spread. By 1999, Sandy discovered phone records showing hundreds of calls between Garth and Trisha, along with receipts for expensive gifts. The marriage ended in a record-breaking divorce settlement, with Sandy receiving over $100 million in cash, property, and royalties. For Garth, it was a painful and very public downfall. But even with all the money lost, the real breaking point came from his children. Around Christmas of 1999, his 8-year-old daughter Taylor asked him a simple but heartbreaking question: "Daddy, could you be a dad all the time instead of just sometimes?" That moment shook Garth more than any scandal, lawsuit, or financial loss ever could. He realized he didn't even know the names of his daughter's teachers or their best friends. He was a stranger in his own home, and the price of fame suddenly felt unbearable. In October 2000, at the height of his fame, Garth Brooks shocked the world by announcing his retirement. Standing on stage in Nashville, he told the press and fans that he was walking away. Even though he was only 38 years old and at the peak of his career, the announcement came on the same day Capitol Records was celebrating his achievement of selling over 100 million albums in the United States. Most people thought it was just another publicity stunt, but Garth was serious. He turned down deals worth millions of dollars and left the music industry behind. Instead of moving to Hollywood or living the celebrity lifestyle, he went back to Oklahoma to focus on raising his 3 daughters. For the next 14 years, Garth lived a very different life. He and Sandy worked out a custody arrangement where they exchanged the kids every single day at 6 p.m. one night with Mum, one night with Dad. Garth attended school events, coached soccer, and packed lunches. To neighbors, he was no longer the superstar Garth Brooks, but simply Taylor, August, and Allie's dad. He later admitted those years were the best of his life. In 2005, he married Trisha Yearwood in a small, private ceremony, blending their families together. While the world begged for his return, Garth was content, living quietly and focusing on family. After more than a decade away, Garth returned to music in 2014 with a massive world tour. Despite fears that audiences had moved on, the response was overwhelming. He sold out arenas across the country and proved that his fan base was still loyal. The tour became one of the biggest in country music history, grossing over $360 million. He also released new albums, including Man Against Machine, though critics were less kind to his newer work. Still, the comeback proved that his name alone was enough to fill stadiums, yet fame also brought new troubles. In 2024, a former employee filed serious allegations against him, leading to lawsuits and negative headlines. While Garth denied all accusations and fought back legally, the scandal cast a shadow over his legacy. For many fans, however, the story of Garth Brooks will always be about the choice he made in 2000. At the height of fame and fortune, he walked away because of 8 words from his daughter. He gave up being the biggest star in the world to become something far more important, a present father. Garth Brooks' life is a story of extremes, unmatched success, crushing personal struggles, and a rare decision to step away from it all. He grew up under pressure to be perfect, became the most powerful figure in country music, and then gave it all up for his family. His retirement shocked the world, but for Garth it was the only choice that mattered. Years later, when asked about his decision, he said money and fame could never replace the chance to watch his daughters grow up. That answer explains why his story still resonates with millions today. At his peak, he chose family over fame, and that sacrifice remains one of the most unforgettable chapters in music history.